to the first episode of the Itinerant's Itinerary podcast. My name is Adrian Kovac, and I am going to be your host from now till the end, whether that's 2 hours from now when this episode's not going to be 2 hours. We should probably cut that. Whenever that's going to be. And normally moving forward, there will be perhaps one day a co-host with me, depending on how this obviously goes, and definitely guests though. And there was supposed to be a guest today who might eventually one day end up becoming a co-host. My cousin Lucas. He's regularly a great guy, but he's kind of a bastard because he flaked on me because we are supposed to do all this filming last week, and he just said, "Yeah, I have other plans." I was like, "Damn, that sucks." But anyway, yeah. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. This is the first episode of the series, of course, our pilot. And what's this episode going to be about? What's the itinerary, I suppose? Um, so today's episode is going to consist of, I guess, 4 parts. The first part, I'm going to explain in detail somewhat uh, what this podcast is going to be about, why you should listen to it if you're interested in this sort of thing. If you're not, that's also cool. But yeah, that's not what I'm making this for. So, yeah, why I'm doing it, like what I kind of get out of this. That's a weird way of saying that, but I promise I don't mean anything by it. But, and yeah, I guess how it came to be and what I hope it can do one day. And yeah, also how I came up with the name, which I'm starting to become a little bit more regretful of because I do love the alliteration of itinerants, itinerary. But see, I can't even remember it. We'll see. It's kind of a tongue twister. I feel like people would hate typing that if this actually did ever become anything. But that's not important right now. So our itinerary, yeah, that's gonna be all kind of like the background stuff to begin with, and then I'm going to go segment by segment. We are going to have, sorry, scrap that. Going to move into the sort of, I guess it would be the main course section of this episode, which is going to be travel talk. And yeah, that's what we're going to be doing here. If it wasn't known already, I mean, never mind. Um, yeah, and today how that's going to happen is I'm just going to give like there's going to be like two different kind of like segments. One's sort of going to be like a mini game related. It's going to be arcadey is what I mean by that. uh it's going to be related to a proposed trip that my cousin called me about. My cousin Max. Lucas is a part of this as well. I'll get there eventually. Ideally I would like to call him, or Max too, but Max is at work, Lucas is at school. And yeah, anyway, not any of that's important. And yeah, it's this proposed hiking trip. Um, we'll get there when we get there. And then our next segment is kind of going to be doing something different as opposed to something that I'm kind of planning on doing or that I want to do. Something that I actually did with a little bit I'm going to call the travel tip of the day. Ooh. where I am going to read out a travel tip that I pulled from an online journal. I think it was Lonely Planet. I can't remember. But and then I'm going to share a story that's connected to it. I have the tip already. I have the story. Uh, it's from Barcelona, Spain last summer when I went with my sister. And again, more on that when we get there. And then that will kind of segue into our final end segment, which I'm going to call, and this is also probably for the future going to be very arcadey, especially if there's guests or a co-host. It's going to be called Beers Around the World because I love beer, A, and B, I think beer is a great topic when you're discussing anything travel related because they make beer everywhere. And there aren't that many types of beer, don't quote me on this, but something like 12. So just kind of for that as the basis of all the beer there is, like it's really fascinating how many different styles there are. And if you like beer, a lot of people love beer. Sorry, my camera's on a swivel chair and it's got like a hard surface underneath it, but it just kind of turned because I needed kind of like a flat space behind me. My basement's a little busy. Um, anyway, yeah, and for this first episode though, I have a beer that's not made here in Southern Ontario, in Canada. And I'm gonna read out some fun facts about the brewer. And it's a very famous beer company. And yeah, I'm gonna drink the beer. And that's about it. And yeah, like I said, future segments would have more in them. But yeah, that'll kind of be our final segment, sort of, for today. And then I'm just gonna wrap up. I'm gonna discuss kind of what I would like to do with future episodes. So that's what we're gonna be doing on this episode. And I guess now let's get started. Okay, so this is the Itinerant's Itinerary podcast. And what we're gonna be doing on here is talking travel, like I said. Just kind of to start with like a little bit of an Easter egg, I kind of came up with the name for this podcast through looking for synonyms of, I think, the word nomad. So yeah, I'm not entirely proud of that. But I like the alliteration. I thought that was pretty clever, so I mean, I guess it kind of makes up for it. And if you don't know what an itinerant is, the direct definition is someone who travels from place to place, and it's implied frequently. And so, because travel, yeah, but also, we're also going to be doing a lot of jumping around, and it's almost going to be like a travel podcast variety show of sorts sometimes. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. But so what's gonna happen is in later episodes, like I said, there will be guests and a lot of I'm gonna try and get people again, seeing how far this goes. Um, as many people that I could meet, like I don't know, like through Reddit communities. There's also like those apps for people that's like solo travelers, like, hey, let's meet here type of thing. Just get some of their information. I have another cousin actually. His name is Goran. He's from Croatia, but he lives in Spain. He's lived there for a very long time now. I think 4 years, 5 years maybe. He worked as tour guide in Barcelona. Now he lives in the mountains just above Barcelona, below Andorra somewhere. He's a great guy, very intelligent, very knowledgeable. He's been to like 30 countries, I think. And yeah, So he'll definitely be a guest, as well as anyone that I can meet that has any interesting traveling experiences, as well as anyone who, like I said earlier, I believe, or maybe it was just in the last take. I did a long take before this that it's throwing me off now. Anyway, um, whether I said this or not, I'm gonna say it now. I would like for this to be kind of an interactive experience. And if anyone does end up listening to this, I would like to be able to have somewhere to reach out through, like Reddit or Quora or one of those types of platforms, where if anyone wants their stories shared or has like questions, or like there's a trip they want to do but they're scared to for maybe they're scared of grizzly bears and they don't want to go out west or something like that. But they love Douglas fir trees, so it's like, yeah, I want to go to the Cascades. Um, anyway, it could be all kinds of things. That was a very specific example. I'm not afraid of grizzly bears. I would actually love to go to the Cascades National Park. I planned on it during reading week last semester, and I didn't do it. Yeah. Anyway, I keep doing that a lot. But anyway, yeah, that they can ask questions and that their stories can be shared. And also, too, that if any of these people want to end up on the show, we can definitely do like some more traditional style interviews like, through Zoom. Okay, I don't mean I mean more kind of face to face, because I assume people aren't going to be, wouldn't be flying over for something like that. Yeah, get a lot of myself. I honestly know for this video. But anyway, and that'd be the last time for that promise. If that's part of the shit. 1534. And that's the main reason why I wanted to do something like this in the first place, because there's a bit of my background. I'm actually currently a third year professional writing student. I usually tell people I'm a journalism student because I don't want to explain my degree because it sounds complicating, and I think that a lot of people get confused when I try and explain it, when it's literally just creative and professional writing. So I say journalism. And I kind of want to, where I'm going with this is I kind of want to be a journalist. Do as many like types of travel pieces as I can. Even those are a lot of the co-ops that for my program I have a co-op semester this summer. So yeah, I want to do some travel journalism. Um, Apologies if that doesn't line up exactly the best. There's going to be a long cut there because I kind of trailed off for a bit. Uh, and I want to do that as well for the same reason, to be able to share people's interesting like cultural experiences that others would potentially never get to hear about themselves. And I mean, this is kind of a large part of what I want to dedicate, or should I say, a large part of what I want to dedicate a large part of my life to. That doesn't make sense. I think you get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I plan one day. My goal is to go to 105 countries, and I think it's doable. So we will see. But I think that's the most important intelligence that we can gain um, in this life is through these experiences that we can have. And so we can see as much of the big picture as possible, if that sort of makes sense. World's a big place, right? Like there's tons to explore. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of my philosophy on it. That's why I'm doing this. And uh yeah, that's kind of our introduction. So I guess we're moving into our first segment now. And our first segment is related to the hiking trip with my cousin Max. Or it's a backpacking trip. It's a hiking trip too. Yeah, it's a backpacking trip, and it's 78 kilometers. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Originally, by the way, when he called me the first time, he said this is a 90-kilometer trail. So yeah, actually, let's get to that. So it was a Wednesday night, and I was at work, and I got a call from Max, and he called me a couple times. So I figured that he wanted to talk about something, and I figured it was probably going to be Algonquin related, because that's usually when we call each other. That's what it's in regards to speak like urgently. And so I said, "Hey Max, sorry I couldn't get your call, but can I call you like after and or later tomorrow, whatever." I ended up calling him the next day, but I don't remember exactly what I said. He said, "Yeah, sure." So anyway, we spoke the next day, and he said, "I have a trip to propose to you." It's like, "What kind of a trip? An Algonquin trip?" And he said, "No." And my mind was blown. So I said, "So where are we going then?" He said, "Killarney Provincial Park." Killarney is a big park. It's also central Ontario area. Not sure exactly where it's up by, honestly. I could check on a map. Let's see. It's in Killarney, unsurprisingly, but it is kind of close to Sudbury, Manitoulin Island. From my location, it's just under 5 hours, kind of. But big provincial park, much like Algonquin. And unlike Algonquin, not that this is anything with the park, this is kind of something more with us, but we go, these types of camping trips are kind of like a sort of a rite of passage in my family. That's kind of like family and family friends. That's like something they've been doing together since like my uncles and some of their friends in the 90s. And this has kind of continued like the next generations and stuff. It's a fun thing. But that's how Max got into it. That's how I got into it. Now we're kind of planning trips, I guess, outside the annual Algonquin trip, unless something happens and it can't happen that year. But it happens almost every year. I've been twice myself, so not that many times, but I mean I've been camping a ton more times than that, but specifically on these trips. And yeah. Anyway, I plan to go again this year too. But the big difference with this Killarney trip as opposed to our Algonquin trips would be that there would be no portage, meaning no water, no canoe, no carrying a canoe. And a lot of this trip, also, I should mention, is uphill. If I actually read the description, this 78-kilometer trail, which he originally said was 90 kilometers, to which my response was 90 kilometers? Are you insane? Because, yeah, like that's crazy, isn't it? I don't know. Now knowing there's no portage, I feel a little bit better because he did clarify that. And I think I could, it would just take a lot of like preparation, I guess, I don't know, like training, whatever the word, I think it's just an E, drawing a bit of a blank. So anyway, this trail at Killarney, it's called La Cloche Silhouette Trail. Please don't judge my French. Um, And according to Killarney Provincial Park's website, Killarney or Killarney Outfitters, I don't know if that's the same thing. Assume it is. This is just a brief description of what it says. Uh, La Cloche Silhouette Trail. This challenging yet rewarding trail covers a total distance of 78 kilometers, passing over ridges, through valley bottoms, and alongside picturesque, crystal clear lakes. It's also Killarney Park's only multi-day backpacking route. So yeah, I asked Max, how long would this thing take? And he said, well, it's a loop, so you can get it done in as fast as, for some reason I want to say he said 8 hours, but that just sounds obscene for 78 kilometers. But especially because it does have uphill parts to it, as I kind of mentioned. Sorry, my camera's on a swivel chair, which might not have been the greatest decision, but I mean, it's a little late for that now anyway, so that's why I kind of have to keep adjusting the thing every so often. That's sort of mumbling, and I mean, I didn't really say anything important. Killarney, trail, park. Yeah. Max said that he wants to ideally take 6 days, but mainly, I mean, not also so we're not like really overworking ourselves. He ideally says 6 days, 4 guys, and like just kind of that we work in pairings for everything that we do. So we're very mechanical in like our movements, setting up and taking everything down when we're moving from site to site and all that stuff. Um, anyway, did it again. So that's that proposed trip. I proposed it to my cousin Lucas, who also he had a very complex time with his first Algonquin trip, my second. Our last one wasn't last summer, it was the summer before, and he did get a few really crappy things happen to him. Like he got so sunburnt at the beginning of that trip that he had to wear pants for the rest of it. Like on day one, so up to day six, he had to wear pants, and because of the type of like nylon or whatever windbreaker kind of material his pants were, like I think he actually still like got sunburnt through the pants somehow. His thigh and like his shins were like all purple. It was brutal. I felt terrible for the kid, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Nature, right? Uh, yeah. So anyway, when I originally proposed this to him, because Max told me to, uh, he said, "It's 90 kilometers? No chance in hell." And I was like, yeah, that was kind of my response too. But I said, hold on, let's call Max because we were together. And then Max explained, and that's when he clarified that it is 78 kilometers in fact, and that there is no portaging, no canoeing. And then Lucas was more interested. And that was also when I was more interested. This was a few days after I originally spoke to him about it. Um, yeah. And so, with that kind of story, here are the things, our first mini game. Yippee! Here are the things that I think that you would need to bring for a 78-kilometer backpacking trip uphill somewhat. All kinds of terrain. Never know what you're going to run into. First thing is a good pair of hiking, running shoes or boots. Hiking shoes. I have running shoe kind of ones because boots are more expensive. Um, anyway, it's all kinds of terrain. A lot of it does go uphill. I believe Max said there's some parts that are almost kind of quarry-like. You need shoes that can handle all of that. You're going to be carrying a very heavy pack. Probably, I'd say like around 60, 70 pounds for 6 days straight. 5 if the trip needs to be shortened based on people's work schedules mainly actually. Um, but yeah, and you're going to need some support, stability, obviously, lots and lots of walking and climbing. And that's only if you just stay on the trail and you don't kind of venture off and do your own kind of excursions at all. But that's the first thing. The next thing that we are going, oh, first thing we're going to put in the backpack. I think it was also only in the last take that I did too. But I got my hiking bag with me. Um, very sturdy bag. You can see it's got these bars. It's made by McKinley, like the mountain in Alaska that I would really love to go to. And yeah, I got it on sale for Boxing Day, I think. I got it for like 270, 250, 275, somewhere around there. And it's regularly three something. Any money saved, good money saved. I'm not complaining. The next thing that you will need for a 78-kilometer hiking trip, I think, is a shit ton of water. Because I would say it gets very tiring walking that whole distance. Um, yeah, I mean, I honestly don't really have that great endurance. That's one of the things that I would really have to train. Uh, so I always need water, sweat a ton in those types of like physical scenarios. I guess most people do. That's kind of what exercise is. But the point that I'm getting at is we need a ton of water, obviously, especially if there's sun going into the higher altitudes at certain points. The air gets thinner, you get more lightheaded. You gotta you gotta make sure that your head is on, that your headspace is clear. Um, that you can keep going without any water between the sun and the thinning air. It's not exactly a recipe for a good idea. So, yeah, drink lots of water. And the third thing for this little segment, oh yeah, I can also say, but I'm not going to throw it in this bag. The third thing that I would like to bring on this trip is my camera right here. I got from my Uncle Joe, which he got from family who found it in their basement that belonged to a genius professor who went crazy and was a huge hoarder. And this is a Nikon F camera. It's probably from around the same time my mom was born, early 70s, 72, 73-ish. And when I took this thing into the camera store to kind of have them like review it, kind of tell me what they could about it. Really cool things they told me. Said this camera's maybe been used 3 times ever before I started using it, because I started using it to take outdoor photography. So, yeah, I would love to bring this camera on a trip like that. Uh, I mean, I've never been to Killarney before, but much like Algonquin, and especially at those higher altitudes, I assume that there's going to be plenty of great photo ops. And I hate that I said that, but we're moving on. And the fourth thing, I don't actually have an actual one, but I got a toy one from a Jack Sparrow Halloween costume, a compass, and like I said, I don't have an actual one. In the bag it goes, so there's our bag plus the camera. And as I mentioned, I don't as I mentioned, I don't have an actual one. I think I did at one point, but it's a really good thing to have. I mean, you can get it on your phone, but I think that number one, we don't really bring or use phones a lot on these kinds of trips, mainly because it kind of defeats the purpose of the trip, but also it can die, and then like, what are you gonna do? You can't rely on it. So yeah, you need a compass, especially when you're kind of going off trail, as I think this loop sort of has like some spots to do that, and Max is the type of guy that likes to do stuff like that. You need to know how to get back to where you were and where you're going. And so, yeah, Compass is obviously another really great thing to do to carry. My bad. Okay, so yeah, that was the first segment. Uh, I guess in future episodes, if I ever did continue this again, I would say let me know what you think and if you would do that trail and all that stuff. But I guess that's not for our first episode today. What is for our first episode today though is the next bit that I was planning on discussing, and that is our travel tip of the day. This tip comes from the Endless Adventure Co. And it's check for major events and holidays happening during your stay. And I think that's a very important thing because it can either make or break your trip depending if that's something you're okay with. And I actually have a really great example of this, something that I experienced in Barcelona, Spain last summer with my sister. Went to Croatia to visit some family for 5 or 6 weeks. And I also it was my first time solo traveling too, so that was terrific. I mean, not solo because my sister Lolly, she was with me, but I mean, like without adult supervision. I was the adult, so it was like terrific. And it was a great experience. And on the weekend there, we happened to be there in the middle of August because we're in Croatia for mainly August and a bit of the end of July there. But and in Barcelona, one of the neighborhoods there is called Grazia. I'm not going to try and like pronounce it better than that because I don't want to make a fool out of myself. And I think that that was respectful enough. And in Grazia, it's a neighborhood that's kind of like north in Barcelona. I think it would be north. Barcelona's on the coast. It's kind of hard to say. Sort of northwest, I think. Away from the sea. It is away from the sea, but it's kind of buried in. It's more towards kind of where it gets hilly in the back. That doesn't mean anything. It's away from the sea. I'm not sure exactly how north it is, and that doesn't really matter. But because we were there in peak tourist season, and during that time in this neighborhood, Grazia, there's a big festival there that's called the Festa Mejor de Grazia. Ta-da! And it was a really terrific experience. Um, it's a street festival. There's food, there's music, there's tons of people all carrying like everyone had these reds, not red actually. I think they were more like they were all yellow, like solo cups, like that you would have at like I don't know, like a college party where you're playing pong, and people in the streets are like carrying like five of these at a time, and I had no idea where you could get them the whole time, so that kind of upset me. But it's okay. I had my fair share of a few beers at the bar anyway. But when I tell you, I have never seen anything like this when it comes to like these streets were packed. The thing is, so if you don't know about Spain, even in a big tourist city like Barcelona, if you ever want to go there, you've never been, uh, something that you probably know if you're in that case, but if you don't, I would love to tell you this for the first time. Uh, Spain kind of does things on a little bit of a different schedule than most other countries. I would say their European neighbors, but also just in the world in general. A big part of the reason for that is because Spain should be an hour behind the time they actually are, like Portugal, Ireland, and the United Kingdom, and they're not. They're with Central European time, so everything's kind of weird there. They eat dinner really late, like between dinner starts at 9. You can't find dinner before 9 o'clock really, and it goes till like 11:30, just before midnight. And yeah, the bars are pretty much all open till 2, 3, and the clubs till sort of 6, 5, 6 a.m., I'm pretty sure. I mean, again, that was tourist season. But the one bar like we always went to, it closed at 3 or 3:30. And then the one night I went straight to the club from there. I actually hate clubs. That was my first time going to a club too, actually, in Barcelona. But I wanted a beer. Um, that's an unrelated story that maybe I would cover another day. But yeah, like these streets were packed because my sister and I were looking for dinner. And we figured because it was kind of far from the area, I think it is north. Yes, because we were staying in the south, in Montjuic, where the mountain is, where the Olympics were. And that's where, right by, no, I'm not going to butcher it. Um, in that area, we're in Montjuic area. And so I wanted to get dinner closer there so we could kind of like be there for the festival. I was not expecting to see what I saw. So when I say like if you wanted to stop, first of all, the subway cart, the metro to get there, um, it's the red line, I think. I'm pretty sure it's the red line. Where's the green line? Barcelona's got like a color coded system that Toronto does too. But I think Toronto's system, the TTC sucks in how it's organized compared to the Barcelona BCM or whatever it's called. I have the app for it still because I got the monthly transit pass, like as if I was living there. Um, yeah. Anyway, I did it again. When I say you could not pull over anywhere on the streetcar or the subway, the metro cart, you couldn't move. At the station, you couldn't move. You just kind of had to follow like the bodies as you kind of get pushed up the stairs or escalator or in or out the door, and that was about it. And we kind of were walking for a bit, and this area is big and empty. But then when we get to where the actual like party starts, and there's all kinds of like decorations and people in like some people in costumes, a lot of like zodiac stuff that Lolly was really interested in, astrology things, and like art and street art last time. And that's where obviously the crowds became larger and larger, and the music got louder and louder, and yeah, we were looking for somewhere to eat. And when I tell you, like, you couldn't even go in the alleyways because there were drunk people everywhere, like puking and drinking and having a good time and just like living their lives. Like this festival was electric. And I gotta say, my favorite part of it came actually just as we were leaving and we were on our way to that bar, the Manchester bar. It was called Britpop Pub in the old town area in the Gothic Quarter. Um, that was kind of like the only place that my sister really wanted to go out the entire trip. But the point I'm getting at is the best point of this Grazia festival came because like this was such a big festival. There's so many different things going on. Depending on where you were, it was a completely different like experience and coolest experience ever as we were sort of leaving and moving away from the big area where there was like a concert and like the square a couple blocks over. We're walking down the street. There's still people everywhere. Every patio is like full or the chairs are all missing because there's too many people on the street and they had to move them like out of the way to clear the space because you're literally like sliding by people, shoving them, etc. to make it that you know that you're there and you want to get through. Um, yeah, but we're walking down the street with the crowd, and then there's this open window in an apartment balcony, and they got speakers on the balcony, like railing, and there's four people upstairs, and they're just like playing music and dancing and having a good time. And they were also all probably hammered, but and there's just people on the street below because Grazia also is kind of a bit of an older town area too, or as like a feeling anyway. And so was that type of like apartment that would be amongst many other buildings, kind of like a narrow street and all that. And there's just a whole crowd of people dancing below. And the people on the balcony are kind of like, I don't know, playing the music for, changing the music for the crowd based on like what the vibe was. I don't know, but it was terrific. And they were recording, and a couple of them came downstairs actually to join the people in the street. And it was just such a great vibe. And I had a video of it that my phone died while I was recording, and now I don't have any videos from the Grazia festival, or really that many from Barcelona anyway. I have barely any footage of that trip, and it makes me kind of sad. Um, Swivel chair. Anyway, and yeah, so with something like that, I mean, I assume if you go to even bigger festivals like Mardi Gras in New Orleans or Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, or the one in Prague that I don't remember what it's called, but I think it's also like those two. All like Shrove Tuesday or whatever, Pancake Tuesday. But anyway, again, I did it. I'm gonna try and stop. I really am. But like those festivals, you need to know if you're coming there at that time of year, like either you want to be doing that or you're making a big mistake because even that random neighborhood festival in Barcelona, which my cousin Goran did tell me it is a pretty big festival, like for a neighborhood, but it's also not like even the biggest festival that happens in Barcelona. So, yeah, crazy stuff. Blew anything I've ever seen out of the water, like back at home, like the Peach Festival and Festival Friends we have here, which, like, yeah, not even close midsummer. I mean, okay, the original one, that one probably is definitely much more interesting. But I've never seen anything like it. It was truly a magnificent sight. And obviously the prices get jacked up when stuff like that happens too. So that's another thing that you got to be aware of. But like if you want that cultural experience and to see that explosion of life, then yeah. No, if you're booking, if there's any holidays, festivals, anything big like that happening around when you're planning on traveling somewhere. Awesome. And I think that'll just take us to our final segment, which is the beer of the day. And today's beer is Sapporo. Now, strangely enough, Sapporo and I have kind of an interesting relationship because the thing is that I used to dislike it and I loved it, and then I sort of kind of felt neutrally about it, and now I like it again. And it seems to shift my feelings around a lot. But regardless whether I like it or not, you like it or not, there's a lot that can be said about this legendary Japanese beer. Realizing that this is probably a terrible pour to do on camera. Probably should have did it off camera. Oh my goodness, it's all foam. Terrific. I didn't want this whole beer actually, so I'm probably just gonna put it in the fridge after. But yes, Sapporo. I will put that guy there. And no, this is not sponsored. Although Sapporo, or any other brewery for that matter, did ever want to sponsor me, if this became a thing, I would be more than open to any talks about that. Cheers. We're cutting this part. Not the beer, but just now I'm gonna find action. So, Sapporo beer. Who are they? Sapporo is Japan's first and oldest beer brand. It was founded all the way back in 1876. I'm not very good at math, so I'm not going to try and do how many years. Actually, no, wait, I can do that. 1876. On 1976 was 49 years ago. 149 years ago, I think. 2025. Anyway, uh, it was created by Japan's first German trained brewmaster, the kind of like I was talking about earlier. Fascinating. Fueled by adventurous spirit. Seibai Nakagawa left Japan at the age of 17. Apologies if I mispronounced the name. Fascinating. Sapporo's logo has a special meaning. It's picture the North Star. It stands for guidance, hope, freedom, and purpose. Fits very well, I suppose, then in this series to start it off. Special, one of a kind can. That I do know. The can is not shaped exactly. Mine is actually, but usually the cans are shaped not like other other standard tall boys. They're kind of more like a Coca-Cola glass, wide at the top and at the bottom. Has been the space? Yes, this beer has been space. In 2006, the brand teamed up with Okayama University and the Russian Academy of Sciences to send barley into space. Wow, that's interesting. Sapporo tastes best on a full stomach. I think every beer does. Well, anyway, thank you, Sapporo. This sounds like such a like terrible acting in a bad advertisement. But once again, cheers. Well, I think that'll about do it for my first episode. Um, thank you for listening. Let's see how this goes. I'm definitely gonna make a few more with other people and with more beers. There's definitely gonna be more gimmicks and plans. Hopefully all that stuff is kind of enjoyed. I figured if I just spoke here for like an hour without doing anything else, it wouldn't really, especially because there's no one else. It'd be kind of sad and boring. No one wants that. So anyway, hey, I mean, something. Hopefully something good enough. Uh, yeah, thank you for listening. I plan on probably publishing like 2 of these episodes a month, I would say. But we'll see. I mean, that all depends on guests and everything, so yeah. Until next time, which there should probably be.